Move to agenda item 16, which is consideration of introduction of bill number 470 CBD monument signs to amend municipal code section 1-10-8 design standards and 9-10-8C sign regulations for the CR3 district with possible action. Mr. Seacrest.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. The Maverick Country Store in Mesquite on Sand Hill Boulevard has wanted to put up a larger monument sign for some time. And the design guidelines for the central business district that were adopted as part of the redevelopment district prohibited that. And there are some certain provisions in the sign code that made it not possible for them to do that. So we advised Maverick to bring an application for a development code amendment. This is the result. We want to modify the sign regulations and design standards for monument signs in the CR3 Central Business District zoning district. And so we're recommending you introduce bill number 470 as ordinance 470 and set the public hearing date for March 12th, 2013.
Thank you, Mr. Seacrest. Do we have a motion? Or any comments? Councilman Rapson?
I move to introduce bill number 470 as ordinance number 470, set the public hearing date for March 12th, 2013 at 5 p.m. and adopt it, acting as redevelopment agency board.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Call for the vote. Thank you. Motion carries, so we'll have that public hearing then and adoption on the 12th. Agenda item 17, I have to recuse myself on this issue, and I will let Mayor Pro Tem Withhelder handle the rest at this point, at least agenda item 17.
Thank you, Your Honor. I will read the following item. This is consideration of introduction of Bill 471, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Mesquite, Nevada, amending Title II of the Mesquite Municipal Code entitled Business License Regulations by amending Section 2-1-10, fees and insurance coverage requirements for use of public right-of-way and other matters probably related thereto. And I believe, Mr. Littman, are you going to make the presentation? This is both presented by Mr. Littman and Mr. Haven. Thank you.
Thank you. This ordinance that we're going to be setting a public hearing for deals with your utility bills that you receive through Overton Power, obviously. It's not a huge amount of money on an individual's monthly bill as a rule, but when it comes to business, it can be a sizable amount. And this bill, as I see it now, will reduce the fee from the 3% utility bill to a 2% utility bill to be reviewed at the end of 1 year, which would expire June 30th, 2014. And it's projected that if this bill is adopted, this reduction would cost the city $166,000 in revenue, but we feel there is adequate offset revenue to cover it in Fund 11 for the years 13-14. So that wouldn't be a problem, I don't believe. And if this carries through and we see that it is working correctly, then we can redo this ordinance after that to go to the next step, and hopefully that would be another 1%, and then following that year another 1%. And it will, I think, show a real positive on the part of Mesquite as far as being business friendly, especially if we're attempting to attract businesses in Mesquite that are going to be utilizing a lot of electricity, and I know that they will be. Thank you.
David?
I'd just like to make a motion since this is just an introduction. I think we've had the introduction. So,
Any further comment from anyone else?
we can't. I don't.
Can't comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
I move the City Council introduce Bill 471, read by short title, and set the public hearing in consideration of adoption on March 12th, 2013.
Second.
Call for the vote. That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Woodhull. Agenda item 18 is consideration of approval of the creation of a building division manager position with possible action. Ms. Cardenas, will you be handling this? Or will that be from Mr. Bartley? Absolutely, sir.
Mr. Mayor, we're proposing the creation of a building division manager position. This is a consequence of a reorganization in the Development Services Department. And if requested by the council, I can briefly go over the changes in the department. Essentially, they're requested, essentially, these are the recommendations of a third-party review of the department, and if it's your pleasure, Mr. Mayor, I can quickly go through the other recommendations.
Please do, sir.
Okay. First recommendation is that Senior Planner Richard Seacrest is going to become the department head and will serve in a probationary capacity for the remainder of this fiscal year ending June 30th. Mr. Sawyer remains the city's senior building official, and what's before you tonight is a request to create a position title for him, actually a position for him called Building Division Manager. Essentially, Mr. Sawyer would be the deputy department head in that department. The staff is in the process of upgrading existing permit and licensing software, as well as updating the fire inspections database. Other recommendation is that the department's Development Services Plans Examiner will now report to the city's fire chief on fire-related inspections. One of the recommendations was additional geographic information support. There is funding this year for somebody to provide, for a person to be hired to provide that level of support. Additionally, the department will undertake a review of its ordinances that are overly complex and ambiguous in an effort to simplify them and clarify them. The department, Development Services Department, will make an effort to provide better communication on key issues and projects to the City Council and to Mesquite residents. And then finally, it's worth mentioning that the report called out the department staff, indicating that we had faster processing times than many other municipalities, and the staff was also found to have a mindset of continual improvement and a desire to be business friendly.
Thank you, Mr. Barton. Any questions from the council? Okay, seeing none, we'll seek a motion. Councilman Ramsey?
I move to approve the creation of a building division manager position.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote. Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 19 is consideration of approval of a title and salary change for senior planner with possible action. Mr. Barton.
Mr. Mayor, this is also a result of the reorganization of Development Services Department. Again, the first recommendation that we received from a report was that Mr. Seacrest be the department head and that his salary be changed accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Barton. Any questions for Mr. Barton? Seeing none, we'll seek a motion. Councilman Withelder?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to make a motion that we consider the approval of the title and salary change for the senior planner, Mr. Richard Seacrest.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote. There we go. Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item 20 is consideration of approval of a professional services contract with Howard Cole for collective bargaining negotiations. Mr. Barton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff is proposing that we enter into a professional services contract with Howard Cole for collective bargaining purposes. We don't really feel that we have in-house capability to provide us guidance in this regard. We have two bargaining unit contracts coming up for evaluation, and we feel that it would be in the best interest of the city to have some additional counseling in this regard. Also, we believe it would level the playing field. There is professional guidance available to the bargaining units, and we feel that this would be this would level the playing field in that regard. One thing I should also mention is the cost associated with this. Mr. Cole was the least expensive and best qualified of the people that we interviewed for this position, and even though the number is a bit breathtaking, we feel that it would be worth the city's investment from the general fund to do this. We also have sufficient funds in the general fund to cover these costs. There was a position that we didn't fill this year when Mike Callahan left, our internal services director. We did not fill that position, and there were also some additional savings that were gained when Ryan Toon, Judge Toon, left us to go into a different position.
Thank you, Mr. Barton. Any questions for Mr. Barton or staff? I have one from Mr. Withelder, Councilman Withelder.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Barton, any idea what this is going to take in time for Mr. Cole in these negotiations, as far as obviously the hourly rate is kind of eye-opening, but if we could get some sort of an idea of what it's going to take in dollars for this to happen?
I am hoping that, considering the cost of Mr. Cole's services, I'm hoping that we can use him for a minimal amount of time. I'm thinking somewhere in the vicinity of $5,000 or $6,000.
Thank you.
Councilman Gustavson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have some concerns also about the salary. $428 an hour. The numbers I'm coming up with are a lot higher in terms of number of hours I've used. In fact, with multiple contracts, we may be looking as much as $40,000. We have a program that we pay into that has proved to be very, very good every time we've utilized that, and that's pool pack. I'm just curious why we wouldn't want to use pool pack also. We've now filled the assistant attorney. But I haven't a chance to meet you yet, but you're a good-looking young guy, and I hear good things about him, so we're kind of up to speed then. And in the past, I think that we've been very, very fortunate in Mesquite with our union contracts and negotiations, and I'm not sure. This to me almost looks like we're anticipating that there's going to be great problems, and in the past it's always been handled very nicely with the city manager and our regular law representatives we have. We have pull back that if we feel like we really need it. I frankly don't see, we're talking about cutting revenues and stuff, but we got one that we've got on there. I think let's hang on to our money. I think we might need it.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Mayor, may I answer?
Go ahead, Mr. Barton.
Councilman Popak was the first inquiry we made. The only person they recommend lives in Carson City and would charge us an extraordinarily high dollar figure for travel and for overnight visit. We didn't feel it was practical to use him because of those reasons. He turned out to be more expensive than the attorney that we're recommending. The other thing I should mention is that this is not intended to be a warning shot against the bow. We're not necessarily anticipating that negotiations are going to be particularly difficult. That's not our intent. We just need some additional counseling. We feel that would be in the best interests of the city to have that. But OPAC was the first first place we turned when we started looking for some assistance.
Thank you, Mr. Barton. Ms. Hunt?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Just for the record, I wanted to say I have not been involved in the negotiations prior to this. It was the city manager and the human resources manager that did the negotiations. But I'd also like to say Teamsters has a specialist who does these negotiations. He's well-trained, and that's what he does. This is a specialty area of law. It involves HR issues. And the reason that we're suggesting this is we feel like it's a specialty, just like if you need a copyright, we would seek advice from a copyright attorney. These are negotiations, and we feel like that it would be in the best interests of the city to, if there are goals that need to be reached, they know how to do it. That's what they do as a specialty. So that's why we're recommending it. And we did ask several other cities, and they do use outside people to help them in negotiation, in labor negotiations, simply because of the HR issues and the goals that need to be reached, the budget issues. And we did seek other bids from other attorneys, and this one agreed to not charge us travel time. The only time he would charge us any kind of travel time is if he had to stay over, but he's coming from Las Vegas. He agreed to only charge us for the time that he's here in negotiations or working on the negotiations.
Thank you, Ms. Hunt. Councilman Rapson?
I think it's critical that we hire competent advice in this negotiations. The price that we pay for this, these contracts stay with us for years and years, and if we are adequately represented, it could be a huge expense to the city. This is not necessarily intended to be adversarial. I went through this at Casablanca twice through labor negotiations with unions. It's difficult, it's time consuming for all parties involved, and you have to have a level playing field. It doesn't necessarily mean it's adversarial, but you have to have competent representation. We had a human resource director that has done this before many times. We had a city manager that's been through this many times. We don't have those today. Our city attorney is not specialized in labor law. That is an absolute specialty that entails all facets of the human resource side, the legal side, the contractual obligation side, and performance side. This is, I think we would be doing the citizens of Mesquite and this city a disservice if we did not have somebody there to adequately represent our position and keep it a level playing field.
Councilman Littman?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree fully with Councilman Rapson, but is there anything in our contract or proposed contract that is going to put a cap on this so that we don't end up in a worse scenario in a bottomless pit?
Ms. Hunt?
If council so directs us, we could put a cap in when we do the agreement. My only concern with that is maybe what we ought to put in there, I would suggest, is we put something in that we will discuss it, and if we reach a point, then we can stop it. I'm not sure about a cap, or you can give us a suggestion. We can come back to you if it goes over that, whatever we need to do. But we can put something in the retainer agreement.
Councilman Withhelder?
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, am I to understand we are not signing a contract with this individual that's going to be based on a per hour?
There is a
Schedule.
retainer agreement. There will be a retainer agreement, and we can include that.
Is the retainer agreement separate from the hourly, or is it an addition to, or?
No, it's the hourly. The retainer agreement is merely hiring him at that hourly rate, and it should be noted that that is a discounted rate.
And there are no minimums that we're going to be held to?
No, none. It's
Okay.
just on an hourly rate, and he did give us a, was it 20%? Gave us a 20% discount off from his normal hourly rate because we are a city.
Well, I agree with Councilman Rapson and Mr. Lippman. I certainly think that we need the proper representation. I certainly don't want us to go down the road that North Las Vegas went through with their union negotiations some time back. So I applaud you. Thank you.
Councilman Hafen?
Thank you, Mayor. Great comments. Have some of the same concerns. With disrespect to attorneys, but they're high on themselves. With that being said, I do believe that we have to. We've got to have the A-team. I would ask a couple questions of staff, maybe Ms. Hunt. My understanding is you will kind of take the advisory. I mean, he'll be more of an advisory role. You'll kind of assemble the. Some of the negotiation talks, and so we can minimize his time and consult with him on some of the issues that might be sticking points or whatever that may be. Is that my understanding?
However the council would like it, I think we plan to meet with him, give him our goals, and he would do the negotiation. I will be there, I will supervise.
Okay.
I mean, but he's the one with the...
Right, but you're going to be doing a lot of the leg work as far
Yes.
as, so he doesn't have to, he can get right to the...
Right, we'll get the goals from the council and go forward.
The other question or comment that I need to make, I have been contacted by a couple of employees, and I appreciate the calls. I do want to make it clear, though, that this is not a us against them type situation. We're all in this together. It's not something that, we're against the employees of the city of Mesquite. We have great employees. I want that understood. But as Mr. Rapson said, we just need to come to some agreements. I can assure you that the other side will have the best, and they're paid well. And but I want to make it clear that this is not anything from management and council that we're against employees. We're not. Never have been. They make this city run. We understand that. But as Mr. Rapson said, there are some, we need to have somebody that understands the program. I sat down with RTC. And sometimes you need an expert to get to the nuts and bolts and get them tightened up the way they need to be tightened up. And that's all we're about here. This is not trying to make the employees think that we're against them or they're bad or we're bad. That is not the intent here. We just want to do something that's going to be good long-term for all of us. So I hope that that's made clear. I do appreciate the calls that I receive. I hope I continue to get them. We do try to listen. This is the recommendation. We feel that it's in the best interest of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any further questions of staff from council? Seeing none, Councilman Rapson, is that a question or do you prepare?
No, I'm prepared for motion.
All right, go ahead, sir.
Move to approve a professional services contract with Howard Cole for collective bargaining negotiations.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote. Okay, that motion carries.